This is Charlie Milburn in the Hit Exchange Media Newsroom, where Hit Exchange Executive Editor Eric Hibbs is joining us. Welcome, Eric.
Thanks, Charlie.
You recently returned from an interview with Dr. David Ferrucci, an IBM research staff member and leader of the Semantic Analysis and Integration Department for IBM's Watson supercomputer project. What did you all discuss?
In this segment, I talked to Dr. Ferrucci about his team's current focus, the potential impacts that Watson may have on the medical field, and how that could save healthcare dollars and other areas in which Watson may be used.
Thanks, Eric. Here's Dr. Ferrucci talking about those topics, starting with the Watson team's current focus.
So the short-term focus has been writing papers. We're writing a lot of papers. We didn't write papers for 4 years, focusing on driving the technology. So as researchers, we want to kind of get the word out there. What are some of the core ideas that we did? How did we advance the area of NLP, sort of in the traditional venues, the conference, the academic conferences, and so forth and so on. But from a technology direction, we're very much focused on improving Watson's ability to learn language with less and less, manual intervention. So we're looking at what we call active learning and dialoguing. So in the process of using Watson, how does Watson learn from its interaction with its user? Can it ask follow-up questions? Healthcare actually provides a really nice application of that, where the system can come back and say, look, here's the evidence I have for this particular differential diagnosis, or for this, here's the evidence I have supporting these various kinds of treatments, but what I'm missing is this. So if you could tell me, where the patient has visited in recent months, the differential diagnosis, the evidence would change, and the confidences would switch. And I want to make you aware of that. So the computer can actually look at where it's failing to gather the appropriate evidence that would change a confidence or would change the evidence profile. From that failing or that lacking, it could actually generate questions back and learn from the user, or it could say, you know what, if I knew that this particular thing that I never saw before is a type of treatment or is a drug that I haven't learned about before, if you could tell me that, then I would be able to score this evidence differently, right? So it could figure out what knowledge it's missing and ask for exactly those things that would start to improve its knowledge base and improve its gathering and assessment of evidence. So we're working on technologies that help Watson, if you will, find where it's failing or find its lackings and engage in dialogues, with users to improve its knowledge base and improve its results. We can talk about the obvious impact, which is higher quality care and reduced costs, but how do we get there? And I think that technology will help in a number of ways by sort of directly addressing those issues. Can we get the professional access to broader information, higher quality results? Can it actually help in bringing up treatments that might have been missed, bringing up diagnoses that might have been missed? And that's kind of the direct application of technology. But there's an indirect impact that I think ultimately can be pervasive and very important, which is it improves communication and collaboration between the different parts of the healthcare scenario. You have the doctor, you have the nurse, you have the payer, and you have the patient. You have all these different players in the healthcare process. And if you imagine that you have this system that's always on, if you will, always active, assessing what's in a patient's case, comparing that to what's out there in the knowledge bases, in the literature, in the various reference books, and assessing it, weighing it, comparing it, producing evidence profiles. And imagine you had this hub, this central place that all these players can go and help be aware of what's going on and help manage that information, with the computers helping to organize it, connect it, correlate it, and everyone gets this view, and they could all interact with that view. I think that would keep things in a synchronization that would immediately have impact on higher quality and a different experience in healthcare. Because now, imagine as a patient, right? I can identify with being a patient, and I go there and I see this. If I start to see this information getting correlated, getting formulated, that the computer's helping organize it in these evidence profiles, and I could see the different possibilities, and I could read, don't overwhelm me with tons of information I get on the web. I could read the stuff that's relevant to my case and relevant to what my doctor thinks. That informs me. that helps me feel like people are paying attention. It gives me the information I need to answer questions better. Because now I sit there and say, oh, now I understand why the doctor was asking me that question, or now I see where this is going. Let me provide the information that's really going to clarify this. Because now that I see this, I didn't understand it before, I'm going to answer the question differently. This happens all the time, in my personal life, my family. Well, did you ask the doctor this? Well, I didn't think of that. Well, I think the reason why that came up was because if that was the case, then I would have said this. But now I'm not in the doctor's office anymore. So now if you have this tool facilitating this intelligent collaboration between all the parties here, you have a very different picture. One, I think that would get people more engaged in an intelligent way in their own healthcare, whether it be diagnosis, whether it be treatment, whether it be prevention, right? Because now I'm a lot more aware of what's going on. Everybody's more aware of what each other person, player in the system is doing and why they're doing it. That kind of information, I think, changes the quality and the method to which we collaborate. So I think it's not a direct thing we think about when we apply the technology, but I think it will have a pervasive effect on how we relate to the healthcare system. Ultimately, it would be really interesting to see this sort of technology available to the consumer in some form. I think there are a lot of issues around that, but nonetheless, I think it's a compelling vision to think that this kind of technology that can facilitate sort of an intelligent collaboration, and to do that, then the consumer would have access to some view of this technology as well. Just starting to think about that, I think it's an exciting thought, not sure how it would get deployed yet. I think that where we are going now with the applications of Watson will start to encourage us, if just not illuminate this concept. So this is on the back of the mind. So it's not a direct application of Watson, but I think as we apply Watson in different scenarios, we'll start to see the possibilities of this idea. I think cost reductions come in for, first of all, in sort of deciding whether or not a test is worthwhile. Do we have enough evidence to justify that we're doing this test or that test? So that helps manage costs. Certainly helping with diagnostic errors, particularly in the more complicated cases where going off on the wrong tangent right from the beginning could end up being very, very expensive. And this relates again to cost reduction related to tests. If I'm going down the wrong path because I have a misdiagnosis, I'm getting tests that are potentially not the most appropriate tests. So better quality in assessing different diagnostic possibilities. Similarly with treatments. We go down the wrong path with treatments, can be very, very expensive. We want to make sure we have our ducks in order. We want to make sure we considered all the possibilities. We did this in an objective and non-biased way, and we considered all the evidence. And you have the doctor at the center of that, but if the computer can help around the edges and looking at the misdiagnosis, the mistreatment, making sure all the evidence is considered, all the stones are turned over and so forth. We can start reducing costs in those areas. So I think that's where we can get cost reductions, and I think the flip side of that is higher quality as well. If you're not going down the wrong paths, you're not doing the unnecessary tests. Hopefully, you're doing the necessary ones. And you're going down the right paths, you're improving quality. Another dimension of quality, and I think again, it also impacts cost reduction, is the technology helping to keep the patient more informed? Are we reducing costs by having the patient come in less because they're more informed, or coming in when it really matters? And if we can improve the information flow and the collaboration between the different parties, we can reduce costs that way as well. Areas where, again, if you step up and you look at this more from a technology perspective, you go back to what I had said earlier, which is that you have this sweet spot, this area where you want access to a lot of that unstructured information, but you want more precise more analytical access to that huge wealth of unstructured content. I mean, where does this play? I mean, this plays in the finance industry, where we want information to help make investment decisions. We're not talking about, you know, the quick day-to-day trades. We're talking about the longer term, managing an investment portfolio. What's really going on in the industry? What's likely to happen? Can I get access to this information more effectively? A lot of it is not in formal structured databases. So going beyond the indices and looking at what's really happening in that space. So financial research is another area. Tech support is an area where you're talking about huge bodies of information about different problems and how they occurred and what were the solutions, user manuals, textbooks, and so forth. So anything that involves diagnostics and treatments, not necessarily of people, but of computers and technology, can help in contact centers and things like that. Again, reducing costs, higher quality results, in tech support and contact centers. So I think those are two areas that come to mind. Legal is another area that comes up. You know, I think legal is all about language, is actually very complex, nuanced language. I don't put that at the top of the list for Watson, but it's certainly an area we're keeping an eye on and have to talk to more customers about.